having any business before this honourable court now draw nigh, give your attendance, and you will be heard. God save the King.
This special sittings has been convened to farewell a much-admired judicial officer, Judge Chris Robison. May I extend a very warm welcome to you all present this morning. I particularly acknowledge the presence of members of Judge Robison's family, his wife Leonie, son Lachlan, who's sitting at the bar table, and Callan's partner, Danielle. I'm also privileged to welcome the Chief Justice of New South Wales, Andrew Bell, the President of the Court of Appeal, Julie Ward, and Justice Beach Jones, Chief Judge at Common Law. Judge Robison, you have served the court with distinction for 28 years. You came to the court in 1995. At that time, Paul Keating was the Prime Minister and Bill Clinton was the President of the United States. For those present who have an interest in sport, Mark Taylor was the captain of the Australian cricket team, and heaven forbid the Canterbury Bulldogs won the Rugby League Premiership. Neither the Civil Liability Act nor the Crime Sentencing Procedure Act had been enacted. The challenges which these important legislative changes introduced would confront you in future years. I merely mention these matters as they emphasise the length of your service to the people of New South Wales. Whilst I intend to focus upon your contribution to the work of the court, I'll briefly mention that you came to the court after being a partner of the firm Ellerton Law and after distinguished service to the Law Society of New South Wales. You were appointed a judge at a young age. As a term of endearment, you were referred to by the profession as the boy judge. Upon your appointment, you quickly embraced all the work of the court. You have presided in difficult trials in the court's civil and criminal jurisdiction. In recent times, you have ventured into the coal miners' workers' compensation list and the special statutory compensation list. Your enthusiasm for new judicial adventures was not diminished by pending retirement. You have the extraordinary ability to deliver extempore judgments, even in the most complex and hard-fought cases. In my almost 9 years as Chief Judge, your name has not appeared in the reserved judgment list. One of your extempore judgments found its way to the High Court of Australia. In Strong and Woolworths Limited, 2012, 246 CLR 182, which concerned the difficulty in slipping cases of establishing a causal connection between the absence of an adequate cleaning system and the plaintiff's injury when it was not known when the slippery substance was deposited, the plurality, French CD, Gummo, Crennan and Bell JJ, referred to your extempore reasons for judgment, quoting at 11 the following passage from it. You said, I quote, "If other people could see the grease mark, apart from the plaintiff, after the event, then it begs a serious question as to why it was not seen by an employee of Woolworths in those particular circumstances, and it should have been removed either by Woolworths or Woolworths alerting the cleaner to remove it, which was entirely open to Woolworths to do, and if that had been done, the plaintiff simply would not have come to grief. I can put it no more simply than that. So, therefore, Woolworths is guilty of negligence." Unfortunately, Woolworths appealed to the Court of Appeal. The appeal was allowed, the judgment was set aside, and the proceedings were dismissed. I hasten to add that the Chief Justice and the President were not members of that court. In the High Court, the orders of the Court of Appeal were set aside and the appeal allowed. I'm reliably informed that the restoration of your judgment entitled you to membership of a very exclusive club of judges known as CARC, the Court of Appeal Review Club. Membership of the CARC consists of those judges who have been overturned by the Court of Appeal and restored by the High Court. I must say the existence of this club will neither be confirmed nor denied, but Justice Slattery, who is also present this morning, admits to being a bronze member. I'm also reliably informed that the Chief Judge in Equity is a gold member. May I now mention your dedicated service to the community. You have been a member of the Royal Fire Service for many years. Your extensive background in firefighting was mentioned by the President of the Law Society when you were sworn in as a judge. In fact, it was mentioned that you were the only member of the court who had been rated and approved as a driver of a firefighting personnel carrier. Since that time, you have held senior rank with specialist training in communications and air traffic control. During the terrible bushfires in 2019, judges would hang on your every word in the judges' dining room when you predicted the catastrophes that would occur if the Gosford Mountain Fire jumped the Hawkesbury River over to the upper North Shore. When you travelled on judicial visits to China, you were known by your fellow judges, including me, to inspect the fire escapes and firefighting facilities in the hotels you were staying at, and relate the result of your inquiries to the rest of them who are not so interested. Your contribution to the court cannot be properly understood without mentioning the person that you are. Your warm personality, coupled with a quick intellect and willingness to listen, made you the judge who your colleagues would consult when issues both judicial and personal needed to be discussed. You are a consummate gentleman. These characteristics, together with your commitment to the work of the court and dedication to justice, endeared you to all of us who have served with you. You leave this court being held in the highest esteem by your colleagues and by members of the legal profession. During your judicial career, you have demonstrated the best qualities expected of a judge. Thank you for your service to this court. On behalf of all of your colleagues, I wish you and Leonie a very happy future. We will miss you.
Thank you, Chief Judge.
Ms. Bashir.
May it please the court, I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and future First Nations leaders. I extend my respect to First Nations peoples with us today, both in court and online. On behalf of the New South Wales Bar, it is my great pleasure to acknowledge Your Honour's 28 years of service to the court and your life in the law, which has spanned more than 50 years. After leaving school in 1970, Your Honour commenced employment at the legal firm Ellett and Law in 1971. Articles of clerkship followed in 1972, which were served with Master Solicitor Thomas Waters. Your Honour studied law via the Solicitors Admission Board, and you were admitted as a solicitor in the Supreme Court in 1977, becoming a partner of John Lattin in 1981. There was a familial and professional lineage, as Mr. Lattin had been tutored by Your Honour's father, who was himself a highly respected senior solicitor and an expert in the old system of conveyancing. Your Honour greatly admired your father, and his portrait hung in your chambers until the last day, when it was handed down to your son Lachlan, a member of our bar, with an instruction that he should look up to it for inspiration, as Your Honour had done throughout your career. In Your Honour's own practice as a solicitor, you were known to be honest, hardworking, conscientious and detailed, all qualities that Your Honour would bring to the bench. As a member, a committee member for the Law Society in 1985 and a council member from 1986, Your Honour was principled and outspoken on matters of integrity, qualities which made you eminently suited to a role with the Legal Profession Disciplinary Tribunal from 1992 until you were appointed to the District Court in 1995. At Your Honour swearing in as a judge, the Honourable Murray Tobias AMKC, then President of the Bar Association, and later, of course, a judge of the New South Wales Court of Appeal, spoke of Your Honour's impeccable integrity, independence of spirit, calm powers of reasoning, and inherent fairness. Your Honour has been described by members of the profession as a joy to appear before, a courteous judicial figure to counsel and witnesses, utterly fair, intelligent, hardworking, and thoroughly pleasant. I would like to personally add my voice to that cacophony, Your Honour, and can say, having appeared as counsel before Your Honour in one of your very early criminal trials around 20 years ago, that Your Honour exhibited those qualities from the outset, and no matter how unusual the request. I have never forgotten the example that Your Honour set as a judicial officer who showed kindness, understanding, respect and flexibility to an extremely junior member of the profession running a trial in the first trimester of pregnancy. Let me simply say that the words, "Is that a convenient time, Your Honour?" took on a whole new meaning. These qualities have served the court well in Your Honour's hearing of many types of matters in the civil and criminal jurisdictions, including building and commercial matters, sentences and care appeals. We have heard from His Honour the Chief Judge of the extraordinary range of matters that Your Honour has presided over. And Your Honour, I wish to note for the record that this courtroom is packed to the rafters today with your judicial colleagues, and as His Honour the Chief Judge has noted, the Chief Justice of New South Wales, the President of the Court of Appeal and the Chief Judge in Common Law. It's not just Your Honour's colleagues who are sitting on the bench, they're filling the courtroom as well as the profession. Remarkable is Your Honour's long-standing practice of delivering ex tempore judgments. One of Your Honour's methods in coming to decisions was taking detailed handwritten notes as you carefully listen to arguments. There are only one or two exceptions to Your Honour's self-imposed rule of making either an immediate judgment or a decision after a short adjournment. Critically, this often resolved matters for the parties without weeks of waiting for a reserved judgment. This was particularly welcome in the matter of McGann and SAS Trustee Corporation, in which Your Honour resolved that matter by way of ex tempore judgment in favour of the plaintiff, after 10 years of him seeking recognition of his workplace injuries, ensuring that he knew the outcome prior to his death, which occurred not long after the judgment was delivered. As we have heard, another particularly notable judgment is Strong and Woolworths, in which Your Honour made a finding of negligence in relation to a fall at a shopping centre. An appeal was allowed by the Court of Appeal, which was later set aside by the High Court. The High Court decision, in effect, reinstated Your Honour's original decision. It has been a highlight of Your Honour's judicial life, I hear, to be able to say a High Court bench, led by Chief Justice French, effectively came to the same finding of negligence that Your Honour had determined in an ex temp judgment. There is a thought that there is value in ex tempore judgments, and in doing so that there's a focus on vital issues over academic dissertation, an idea referenced in a 1995 article by Justice Michael Kirby. Your Honour was sworn in as a judge in March of that year. The article was not published until December that year, after Your Honour had already established a practice of delivering swift and sound ex temp judgments. At that time, there was thought to be an emerging problem of costs and delays in the courts. While others took up a practice of delivering ex temp judgments, few have maintained it so consistently and for so long as Your Honour has done. As a judge of the District Court, Your Honour has enjoyed going on circuit to the regions with sittings in Broken Hill, Burke, Grafton, Coonamble and Dubbo. With characteristic integrity, if circuit work involved flying to another part of the state, Your Honour would ensure that your frequent flyer number was not on the booking to avoid the possibility of obtaining personal gain from judicial office, even in the form of points. Longer than Your Honour's service as a judge has been your service to the Rural Fire Service as a continuous member for over 33 years, joining in November 1989. In the Communications Brigade, Your Honour has been a senior deputy captain, and more recently Your Honour has served in the Aviation Support Group with Airbase Operator qualifications. Your Honour has been awarded a Long Service Medal and Long Service First and more recently Second Clasp for 30 years of service. Later this month, Your Honour will be awarded a National Service Medal First Clasp for 25 years of national service, having already been awarded a national medal after 15 years of service. Your Honour has also been the recipient of the Premier's Bushfire Emergency Citation in 2022. Soon after Your Honour's commencement as a judge, a Law Society Journal article proclaimed "Firefighter new to the bench," as a member of the RFS in that identifiable yellow and blue uniform, Your Honour has stood and worked shoulder to shoulder with fellow volunteers from all walks of life. Your Honour has worked with equal parts of humility and pride in conscientious service for the RFS throughout these many years, and only rarely has your profession as a judge been given away to those close to you. Your Honour, as we farewell you from the court, we join with your family in celebrating your vocational achievements and contributions to the community, which extend further to services to the Rotary and the Scouts movement. We acknowledge your wife Leonie and your children Lachlan, Cameron, Lyndon and Callan. Lachlan, who can remember reading law textbooks at home as a child, became a barrister, as we've heard. Cameron is an exercise therapist. Lyndon is an English teacher living in Japan, and Callan is a wedding photographer. Your wife Leonie is an artist with exhibitions upcoming in Europe. There's a lot to look forward to in post-judicial life, including those exhibitions in Europe, travel and with a grandchild on the way. Perhaps Your Honour will also indulge your interest in military history and in particular aviation matters. On behalf of the New South Wales Bar, we wish Your Honour and your family future happiness, and we thank Your Honour for the many years of great service to the court, the community, and all of your small and large kindnesses along the way. May it please the court.
Thank you, Ms. Bashir. Ms. Cassandra Banks, President of the Law Society.
May it please the court. I also acknowledge the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, the traditional owners of the land on which this court stands, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. I also acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. I come before the court on behalf of the Solicitors of New South Wales to farewell Your Honour from this court. As we have heard, Your Honour has served as a judge on this court since 1995, but your service to the Solicitors of New South Wales, and indeed the people of New South Wales, stretches far beyond that. When you joined Ellett and Law in 1971 as a clerk, you earned $15 a week, and you studied law with the then Solicitors Admission Board. The following year, you entered your articles of clerkship and would eventually become a partner in the firm. In 1985, you were elected to the Executive Council of Young Lawyers at the Law Society of New South Wales, and eventually served on the Council of the Law Society of New South Wales. Your service to the profession through the Law Society extended across the state. You visited metro and regional firms and served on a number of committees, boards and liaison bodies. During this time, you were also involved in the Visiting Practitioner Program at the College of Law and conducted commercial practice visas, partners conferences with students at the college. Your Honour undertook these tasks while regularly preparing and delivering seminar papers covering conveyancing and legal costs to the Society's members. In 1991, you were appointed a District Court arbitrator dealing with personal injury disputes. You also acted as an arbitrator in the local court and were a public notary. In 1992, you were awarded a medal for your service to the Law Society, and later that year retired from the Society to accept your appointment to the then Legal Profession Disciplinary Tribunal. As I've said, Your Honour was appointed to the District Court in 1995. The Law Society conferred life membership on you soon after your appointment. The first trial over which you presided was held in Gunnedah, where you competed with the traffic on the Hume Highway and ended up giving a prasad direction. As a judge of the District Court, you presided over the Bar Association's bar practice course and took part in the College of Law workshops in solicitor advocacy. You are a member of the Australian Judicial Officers Association and the alternate delegate to its governing council. And of course, you have presided over countless civil and criminal matters in the last 23 years. This makes your outside interests seem even more astounding. As we have heard, you are a qualified firefighter and joined your local branch in the New South Wales Rural Fire Service in 1989 and became a member of the Communications Group, later to be elected the inaugural president of the Communications Brigade. You variously held ranks of Deputy Captain and Senior Deputy Captain in that brigade. As we have heard, you have received countless medals and nominations for awards during that period. It beggars belief that you have time and energy to be a member of Rotary and take part in various local and international projects, but you do and currently are involved in sending much needed shelter boxes to earthquake-stricken countries such as Turkey. Whilst the more optimistic among us might hope that you will use your retirement for naps, in reality, your retirement from the bench just means you will have more time to devote to the Royal Fire Service and Rotary. I also understand that you are a devoted husband to Leonie and the proud father of Lachlan, Cameron, Lyndon and Callan, and the loving brother of Samantha and Damien. One of your first ports of call in retirement will be a trip to Venice with Leonie, where she has been invited to exhibit her paintings later this month. Your Honour, the Law Society believes there are no limits to what a solicitor can achieve, and your service to the court is a sterling example to every solicitor and gives each one motivation to aim high. My warmest thanks to you for your service on the bench. As President of the Law Society and on behalf of the Solicitors of New South Wales, please accept our thanks and for your guidance, your leadership, your mentorship and your abundant legal skills. You will be missed. Your Honour, I wish you, Leonie and your family happiness and fulfilment in your retirement. As the court pleases.
Thank you, Ms. Banks. Judge.
This will be an oral judgment, by the way. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of the land upon which this court sits, and pay my respects to the elders, past, present and emerging. I also extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander persons who may be in this court this morning. I thank the Chief Judge for his kind offer to me of a ceremony such as this. I also thank him for his leadership and support, together with his achievements, including but not limited to being instrumental in gaining an increase in the number of judges and the resources of this court. I also wish to acknowledge the Honourable Reg Blanche AMKC, who as the then Chief Judge administered the oaths to me at my swearing in on the 13th of March 1995. He and his wife Robin have been Leonie's and my firm friends over many years now. Unfortunately, they can't be here due to circumstances literally beyond their control. I don't need to go into any detail about that. I also wish to thank the President of the Bar Association, Ms Bashir, for her very kind words. I'm trying to remember that particular trial that she referred to, but sometimes things fade with the passage of time. And thank you, Ms Banks, for your kind words as well. I'm very proud of the solicitors branch of the profession for obvious reasons. I also see my former partner and close friend John Latin sitting here. There are many people I can see in this courtroom who I do know and who've been part of my life, both legal and otherwise over the years. I would like to also thank the Chief Justice of New South Wales for his presence, the Chief Judge at Common Law, and the Chief Judge and the President in Equity. Thank you for coming as well, together with the other judges who I see sitting before me today of the Supreme Court, including the President of NCAT. In particular, I noticed Justice Chen sitting in the back row there, and he may remember a particular case in which he appeared before me called Sweeney versus Boylan nominees. He was very successful in the High Court on that case, mind you, I embraced the dissenting judgment of Justice Kirby, but nevertheless, well, I better move on, I think. But I thank all of you from the Supreme Court who have honoured me today by your presence. I'm very grateful to you. Going back in time, I should remember this. One of the things Leonie said to me when I was preparing this extempore judgment that don't make it sound like an Academy Award speech. Because there are so many people I have to thank who have been part and parcel of my life, both judicial and otherwise, over many, many years. Coming back to my first meeting with Reg Blanche, it was 28 years ago, of course, shortly before my swearing in. And at that time, I was a somewhat nervous 42-year-old solicitor about to confront the challenges of judicial office. I was warmly welcomed to the court by Reg and my then colleagues, and at my swearing in I recall an amazing address from the late John Marsden AM on behalf of the Law Society about my time as a member of the Council of the Society, my activities in the Rural Fire Service, as it is now known, as well as other adventures and encounters. I also recall the very kind remarks of the late Murray Tobias AM RFD KC, the then President of the Bar Association. I've always strongly supported an independent bar, which the New South Wales Bar undoubtedly has, that independence. I'm very grateful to the Bar for its support of my appointment to the court all those years ago. His Honour Judge Stephen Norrish KC said at his bench farewell in April 2021 that there was an article in the Wagga Daily Advertiser which led with this headline, "Yabby Catcher Made a Judge." I had no idea that my former colleague was a yabby catcher, and I don't know how to catch yabbies, but no doubt he's an expert in that regard. Apparently he was pretty good at catching yabbies, and soon after I was appointed, the Law Society published an article about me in the Law Society Journal headed, as you've heard, "Firefighter New to the Bench," quote unquote. The article was very complimentary, but I don't think it would have been as exciting as the article published in the Wagga Daily Advertiser. The time I have spent as a judge of this court has been at times challenging, both in the civil and criminal jurisdictions. I recall my first trial at Gunnedah, and you've heard something about that. Certainly there were noisy trucks going past and a smallish old courtroom. The trial did not last long because after I gave a so-called Prassard invitation, which judges could give in those days, there was a jury verdict of not guilty. And at that time, I spent the rest of the sittings hearing what is often described as short matters. I've often wondered why matters such as sentencing, appeals from the local court and associated matters could possibly be described as short matters. They're never short matters. They always take time, and so they should when it comes to the need for the court to give very careful consideration. After all, we judges decide the outcome of people's lives, both in the criminal jurisdiction and in the civil jurisdiction. Civil litigation and criminal proceedings have gradually become more complex with more material to read. There's been an increase in paperwork. Particularly in the civil jurisdiction, I call it trolley load litigation. If I was able to do this, I would like to see every single entrance to every court in this building have a much narrower door space. So council would not be able to bring in their trolleys loaded with bundles of documents. Here's a bundle for Your Honour. Thank you very much. But I'll reject that unless you can assure me that every page is relevant when it comes to the issues which fall to me to decide. I have found over the years that council then immediately asks for the return of the bundles of documents, and they appear in a different form later on. The District Court in New South Wales is the busiest trial court in the state, which has achieved remarkable results. We've had a significant increase in the number of judges and staff. The timely disposition of cases, both in the criminal and civil jurisdiction, is really self-evident. Our Chief Judge led us through the challenges of the COVID pandemic, and through his leadership and the commitment of our judges, associates and staff, the court was able to soldier on and keep the wheels of justice turning in this state. Indeed, there are many people I should acknowledge and thank for their support and assistance to me over the 28 years I've been a judge of this wonderful court. They are comprised of current and retired judges, associates, judicial registrars, criminal and civil list directors, sheriff's officers, court officers, tipstaffs, registry staff, judicial support officers, including Jenny Garvey, who recently retired, as many of you would know. I'm also grateful to the Reporting Services branch, particularly when it comes to their deployment for the purposes of typing up countless transcripts of oral judgments from me. They are wonderful people in RSB, I must say. But specifically, when I refer to those particular areas of the court, those in the judicial support area, the current acting manager of judicial support, Ramesh Rashidi, Betty Cosmas, Angela Georgalis and Gabriella Markovsky. Indeed, Ramesh, Gabriella and Angela have been very helpful to me in the last few weeks in preparing me for my transition away from this court. I thank them very much for their support in that area. In civil registry listings, there is the case and list manager, Jane Dunn, assisted by Sue Mills, Ruby Esquivel, as well as Assistant Registrar Mary O'Connell in the conciliation area. The assistant registrars, including the legendary Tony Grew, has been with the court, I think, for as long as anyone can remember, and who has an intricate knowledge of all of the rules of court. I'd like to pay specific tribute to him. Our tipstaffs, Peter Martin, David Morris, Pablo Zara, Zoran Kuzmanovic, who no doubt clocks up thousands of kilometres, this is Zoran, every year driving around to deliver essential materials to where our court sits in the Sydney area, and probably further when the need arises. I recall all the hard work that Rob Finito has undertaken over many, many years with this court as the Criminal Registry Listing Manager, as well as Peter Zavella and Jackie Junkovic. Sitting just below the bench here, over here, is my associate Gia Jenkins. She is not only highly regarded and respected by me, but also by others throughout the court system. Her professionalism, common sense, courtesy, loyalty, and commitment to her duties has always been of the highest order. Gia has also been extraordinarily patient in putting up with my many stories of the adventures I have experienced overseas, such as encounters with wild animals when on safari in Namibia. Some people may remember my stories about rescuing a warthog, but I'll move on. Most of the story is true, somewhat embellished a little bit by me. It was back in 1980, somewhere around the Etosha Pan up near the border with Angola is an ageing warthog who may well remember me, I don't know. Yes, I've had some interesting meetings with a number of film, television and stage actors. At a gathering of judges last Friday, something came up about me being a stage Johnny. Well, I wouldn't say I am, but some people may think I am. A few years ago, I was fortunate enough to meet Martin Shaw, the British actor, in London one night, who, after what I told him about my thoughts of his portrayal of Judge John Deed, informed me that he is an honorary bencher of Gray's Inn. As I understood from what he told me, he gives talks to new barristers about how to act in court. I'm sure he would not urge new barristers to emulate the behaviour of Judge John Deed, whom he portrayed. As well as these stories, Gia will now be spared from repeatedly hearing about the Rural Fire Service, Rotary, weather reports, aircraft movements, the best places to sit on Rex's Saab 340Bs, flying to country circuits, crosswind landing manoeuvres, and hearing me commend pilots after a safe landing. Well, somebody's got to do it. Associates don't just work for judges, but with judges. The Chief Judge's Associate, Lisa Freeman, who is sitting next to Gia there, in particular deserves a mention. As acknowledged by the Chief Judge to us in January this year, the work of our associates is fundamental to the success of the court. A classic example of this is the work undertaken by Lisa, which is of wonderful assistance to the court. Her calm, practical approach to her important work is well known. Nothing ever seems to be too much trouble for her. She never complains. I've always enjoyed the collegiality of our court. And coming back to associates for a moment, a number of associates have, on occasions, worked with me on a stand-in basis. I'll indicate who some of them are. I can't recall all of them. There's Dorothy. There's two Sarahs, in fact. They know who they are. Jeff, Matthew, and others who have stood in as an associate for me on occasions over the years. But the collegiality of the court is important. I consider this court, in a way, as an extended part of my own family. I'm surrounded by wonderful colleagues, and I'm also very mindful that not all of those who wanted to be here today could fit on the bench, given the size of this court. Perhaps that could be something to be considered years further. I do think we need a bigger court. Perhaps as big as the Banco Court in the Supreme Court. That's a beautiful court. Plenty of room for all the Supreme Court judges to be there. But I also greatly value the assistance of several sheriff's officers, particularly those who have been deployed to various courts where I sat around the state. Those officers, and one who has since retired as a senior sergeant, after serving with distinction in Broken Hill and other venues, discharge their important duties to the letter. I will be forever grateful to each of them. I also consider them friends. They know who they are. The Chief Judge appointed me as chair of the Court's Security Committee when it was established some years ago, and I've remained in that role since then. I thank the Judicial Registrar and the judges who have served on that committee, as well as the Sheriff of New South Wales and her colleagues for their input and assistance with matters that came to the committee's attention over the years. Club 20. Well, I want to talk to you about Club 20. Club 20 is my floor here in this building. Level 20. I've been very fortunate to have shared the company of its members, both current and former, since the court moved to this building in 1995. I will leave it to the current members to choose the next court jester to lead the floor. Before I move on, I would like to thank the judges and associates on my floor for putting on a farewell lunch for me recently. One of the superb creations was a cake which appeared to be identical to one of my older RFS helmets, which I had on a shelf in my chambers. It was so good that at first I thought it was a real helmet. I recall that there was some concern as to how I should cut the cake. I'm not very good at cutting cakes. Firstly, I need to make sure that with any future cake I may be asked to cut, The knife should not be pointed downwards in a stabbing motion. Fortunately, there was a mad rush towards me to stop me completely destroying this marvellous creation. Some of you may know, and you've heard some comments about this from Ms Banks and Ms Bashir, that before I was appointed to the bench, I was a solicitor in general practice with Ellerton Law, and I pay my respects to John Latten, who is here, as I indicated, as well as my father and all of the practitioners within that firm. After I left Chevalier, I never worked anywhere else apart from Ellerton Law. Perhaps I don't like change. But during my time as a solicitor, as you've heard, I've been involved in a number of Law Society activities, and that was a great privilege and honour to have been involved with the Law Society. I'm very proud of the Law Society of New South Wales, and I would hope that there will be a continuing increase of judicial appointments of solicitors, and it's important to bear that in mind. There were times, because of these activities, about which you've heard from those who spoke at the bar table, when I was absent from the law practice. And I thank John Latten, who was my partner, for his understanding, patience and support during that time. I also have very fond memories of our staff in the firm, most of whom attended my swearing in 28 years ago. I am forever grateful to my wife Leonie and our 4 boys for their love and support, particularly during my absences on country circuits and judicial duties generally. I will now be able to spend more time with her, our boys and their partners. Leonie is an accomplished artist who has been noticed overseas. She has been invited to exhibit her work at an exhibition in Venice in April. Leonie's love, understanding, calm, sensible and practical approach has always been of great comfort to me. I have a fairly large family, including a number of cousins on both sides of my family, on my mother's side and on my father's side. I've always been very grateful for their love and support as well. Each of our boys has embarked on very successful career paths. Lachlan is a very busy barrister, and I'm grateful for those at the bar table accommodating him at the bar table. Nobody has asked me to disqualify myself for any apprehended bias or anything like that, although I am totally biased, I must say, in favour of my son's ability when it comes to the discharge of his important duties as a barrister. In fact, Lachlan has a passion for the law with the deployment of the highest ethical standards as to everything he does, and I thank Lachlan for being here. Cameron, who unfortunately can't make it today, is a highly qualified, very busy and very successful exercise therapist. He has achieved amazing results after his work with clients. Lyndon, who lives in Nagasaki, has been teaching English to young students for several years now. He has received many accolades from teachers and students over the years and is very highly regarded by those who have seen his work. Callan is a hotly sought after professional photographer. Don't want to embarrass you, Cal. And his work includes weddings and photographing boats and all sorts of things. I have seen some of the accolades from many happy couples after their weddings, which were the subject of his photographic talents. For my part, I will continue my long-standing membership with the RFS, and I note that Superintendent Mark Sugden is here today, and other members of the RFS. I'm in my district's operational support brigade and the district's aviation group, and it's a very interesting situation indeed. The RFS is a magnificent organisation of which I've been a proud member for over 33 years. I pay tribute to all members of the service, both volunteer and salaried, who have put the safety of the community at the forefront of their endeavours. The service is comprised of over 72,000 members and provides fire and emergency services covering about 95% of our state. Our members come from a variety of backgrounds and occupations. Indeed, we have a diverse membership within our ranks. There is also a great sense of camaraderie and support between us. Sadly, over the years, a number of members has lost their lives protecting the community, with other members sustaining serious injuries. Indeed, a number with lasting effects from their injuries. At this point, I'd like to pay tribute to my sister, Samantha, who is a member of the Rural Fire Service, and she indeed did sustain significant injuries during the 2019 and 2020 bushfire emergency. My other sibling, my brother Damien, is an accomplished guitarist. He's got a number of guitars, including Les Paul Gibsons and Fender Stratocasters and all sorts of things. My brother Damien, in fact, received his first guitar when I was given my first stock whip. Yes, I'm an ambidextrous stock whip cracker. One of my colleagues is also a stock whip cracker, but he doesn't do it the way I would like to see him do it. I like to do it around my head and down, and you can do it with both hands, it's quite easy. But I do want to pay tribute to my siblings for their love and support. I also intend to continue my membership with my Rotary Club, which has been very active in supporting local and international projects. I am the Sergeant at Arms of my club, which I accept may appear to be a rather intimidating office. It's probably best if I say no more about that role. Like the RFS, there is a diverse membership of Rotary. A recent example of international aid provided by Rotary can be seen by the delivery of materials for use by the victims of the recent terrible earthquake in Turkey and Syria. I want to say something about my school, Chevalier College, Barrel. Some people think that when Chevalier College, Barrel comes up in conversation, perhaps the locals think this way, they sometimes say Barradoo, but not just Barradoo, it's Barradoo actually. I don't know why they say that. A number of past students of Chevalier, my classmates, are here today, and I think there'll be quite a few watching online through the audio-visual link. Chevalier has won 3 mock trials, and that's pretty impressive because I think there'll be some budding lawyers coming through Chevalier over the years. I spent the final 4 years of my schooling as a boarder at Chev, and I have many fond memories of my time there and have made lifelong friends. I could say a lot about Chevalier. It is a great school which has grown considerably since I left in 1970, and I look forward to continuing my association with the college after I retire. Now, about retirement. It's a big thing for me. I've never retired before. What are my plans? I intend to improve my barbecue skills. Well, my colleague just said that wouldn't be hard. Thank you, Judge Tuffin. There were times when I was a little bit excited when I was barbecuing. I see one of my friends down there, Charles Buttrose, who I think witnessed a fire that I inadvertently caused within the barbecue, which required the immediate deployment of a fire extinguisher. But I was really doing it to show Charles Buttrose what is necessary when it comes to putting out fires in barbecue. He's sitting there now watching me very carefully. I like my steaks and sausages crispy, but perhaps not too crispy. As far as retirement generally is concerned, and I'm looking forward to having every day off now, but as Abe Lemons, I'm sure you know him well, otherwise known as a well-known American basketball player and coach, said, the trouble with retirement is you never get the day off. It has been an honour and privilege to have served as a judge of this court. I thank you all for coming, and I extend my thanks to those watching from afar. And when I say afar, I believe that a highly regarded retired attorney, Bob Schaafman, who was of enormous assistance to me way back in 1990 when I represented the Law Society at the annual general meeting of the American Bar Association in that city, is watching these proceedings from Chicago as I speak. G'day, Bob. Leonie and I remain close friends with Bob, who over the years I've come to call, quote, Mr. Chicago. The time has now come for me to say goodbye to you all, and I now do so. I had thought that in the words of General of the Army Douglas MacArthur when he addressed the United States Congress in 1951 and who quoted from an old army ballad that I would, quote, just fade away. But as you've heard from my planned retirement activities, that is not likely to happen for quite some time. I thank you all.
Thank you, Judge. I invite you all now to join us for morning tea. The court will adjourn.
All stand.